You owe me this. That's what lit my phone at 7:14 p.m., November 3rd. While the first lake effect flurries dusted my porch light on Oak Park Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio, 4 words from my own son, Liam, like a bill for my fatherhood. My thumb hovered over the screen, and in the kitchen, my oven timer dinged like a tiny gavel. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're listening from. If you've ever been handed a debt that wasn't yours, you'll want to hear this. I'm Frank Murphy, 67, retired union electrician, widower, bad knee that aches when the weather turns. My house, a paid-off 1929 brick bungalow, is my retirement. My wife's last message sits in a recipe box under casseroles. Keep the house. Frank, I read it when my hands shake. Liam's text kept buzzing with follow-ups. Kayla's bank is done giving us chances. We're $400 behind. Just cover it till spring. Then the barb. Mom would have helped. I didn't answer. I set the phone face down beside a crumpled note he'd left last year on my counter. Emergency 2800. The ink still marked by a coffee ring he never wiped. I reheated stew, ate standing up, staring at the blue folder where my deed lives and the red one with my property tax receipts. It's a habit from the trade. Color for category, order for calm. Through the window I could see my garage keypad glowing a soft green. I still hadn't changed the old code Liam knew from his high school days. I made a note to do it. By Wednesday, silence. Then Friday, a hard knock. A courier in a shiny jacket shoved a thick envelope into my hand. Civil complaint. Murphy vs. Murphy. The ink made my surname look like a stranger's. They were suing me for $1.2 million. Intentional interference, emotional distress, and a line that stung most, elder neglect. Elder neglect. Me, the man who signed over $15,000 for their 2018 down payment and hauled his own tools to repair their deck for free. Sat at my oak kitchen table where we used to play euchre and opened the papers. The legal words marched like soldiers, but the math was loudest. If I paid what they wanted, or even fought blind, I could lose the only thing that feels like my wife is still here, these walls, this porch, that squeaky stair that always warns me I'm getting old. I took out my ledger notebook and wrote the date, Nov 3, and beneath it 2 words, hold ground. The phone buzzed again. A final text from Liam, you either pay or we'll make you. Make me. I looked at my checkbook balance, $2,700 in checking, $312,000 in CDs, and felt my stomach drop. I could pay and bleed, or I could breathe and read. I chose to read. I pulled the recipe box closer and lifted my wife's card like a permission slip. Keep the house, Frank. I pressed it flat on the table, laid the complaint beside it, and noticed something I'd missed in the panic. Their hardship letter inside had a date that didn't match the story Liam told last month. My pulse slowed. If they wanted a judge, they'd get a ledger. I wiped the coffee ring from the old $2,800 note, slipped it into the yellow folder marked texts and calls, and turned on the porch light. Snow kept falling over Cleveland. I locked the side door, slid the deadbolt, and set my phone to loud. If betrayal started with 4 words, my answer would be written in many. Dates, receipts, and boundaries. Next step, find a lawyer who respects ledgers more than threats. The house has a sound when you're alone in it, like a lung sighing. That first week after the lawsuit, every creak in the floorboards sounded like an accusation. I'd sit up at night in my recliner, the furnace kicking on, the vents groaning. Somewhere between exhaustion and disbelief, I started whispering to my wife as if she could still answer. I hadn't cried when she died 3 winters ago. I did that week. I drove to Brooklyn Heights Cemetery on November 8th, gray skies, spitting sleet, and parked beside her headstone. My knees ached climbing out of the truck. I brushed snow from her name and said the words I couldn't say to Liam. They sued me, Maggie. Oh boy, for the house you told me to keep. My breath made clouds in the cold, and for a second I swore I heard her say, don't let them take it. On the way home, I stopped at First Federal Credit Union, the same branch I joined in 1976 when I wired their security system. I asked the teller for my last 5 years of statements. She looked nervous. 5 years is a lot of paper, but she printed them anyway. I wanted to see it all in black and white. Every grocery run, every utility payment, every time I'd transferred money to Liam. My life, itemized. That night I stacked the statements by year on my kitchen table and noticed something sickening. Liam's pattern. Every emergency came right before a new expense. The $2,800 ask just before his anniversary trip to Florida. The $1,200 car repair. The same month Kayla posted photos from a spa resort. I highlighted each one. Then I poured 2 fingers of bourbon and stared at the numbers until they blurred. On November 10th, I drove to EZ Mobile, a strip mall phone store, and bought my first smartphone. The clerk asked if I wanted a case. I said, "Make it something that won't shatter when my life does." He laughed. I didn't. I only wanted the voice recorder app. That night at 10:22 p.m., my new doorbell camera sent an alert. The video showed Liam's silhouette trying the side door handle, the old key still in his pocket. My stomach turned to concrete. He jiggled it once, twice, then walked off. I called LockSafe Cleveland first thing the next morning. By noon, the locks were changed. The tech handed me a new silver key. I turned it in my palm like a vow. When I told my sister Nora, she said quietly, "Frank, this isn't just money anymore. This is pride." She offered to come by, but I said no. I needed quiet. 3 nights later, I heard footsteps again, only this time my mind was louder than my house. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat more than toast. My hand shook pouring coffee. So on November 15th, I took my documents and walked into a small office on Lorraine Avenue, Whitaker and Dunn, Elder Law and Estates. The receptionist looked at my stack of folders like I'd brought in bricks. When May Whitaker came out, she didn't give me a lawyer's smile. Just a firm handshake and a simple question. How bad is it? I told her everything. The texts, the lawsuit, the mortgage arrears, the feeling of being hunted in my own home. She listened, pen still. Then she said, "Mr. Murphy, you don't owe them money. You owe yourself some peace." She flipped open a yellow legal pad, drew a timeline across the top and wrote, "Nov 3, text, Nov 5, complaint. Nov lock change. This," she said, tapping the pad, "is how we win. We keep the calendar honest." She explained the plan. Get copies of my bank records, print the texts, document everything, lawfully, methodically. "No venom," she said, "just facts." I nodded, though my chest still felt like a collapsed wire box. I left her office lighter but not yet brave. That evening, I made a simple dinner, fried eggs, toast, and watched the snow return under the streetlight. The house hummed. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Liam. "Hope you're ready to lose everything." I stared at the screen, then opened my notebook. Under the last entry, "Hold ground," I added 3 new words. Get the truth notarized. If they wanted a war of paperwork, I'd start counting days, not dollars. They called me the next morning, her voice calm as static. "Frank, bring every document you have. We're going to build a map, not a wall." That sentence stuck with me. On November 17th, I arrived at her office carrying my colored folders like armor. She'd cleared her desk, just yellow legal paper and a cup of black coffee. She drew a line across the page and started marking dates. Nov 3, text. Nov 5, complaint. Nov 12, lock change. Nov 15, first meeting. Her handwriting was neat, soldier straight. "Tell me about their mortgage," she said. I told her what Liam mentioned, something about a refinance gone wrong. May opened her laptop and pulled up the county recorder's database. "There," she said, turning the screen toward me. "June 18th, 2024, refinance recorded." She scrolled. Cash out amount $62,000. I sat back. They told me they refinanced to lower their rate. They refinanced to spend. May circled the number and slid the printout across the desk. "Find out where that money went, quietly." That afternoon, she introduced me to Evan Brooks, a private investigator who used to work security for the electricians union. Big guy, gentle voice. He shook my hand and said, "I'll look at the public side of things. No sneaking, no hacking. Just sunlight. By November 22nd, Evan called. Found the first crack, he said. They're 60 days behind on their HOA dues, and they just leased a new SUV last week under Kayla's sister's name. New car, but can't pay the bank, I muttered. He chuckled softly. You'd be surprised how often those overlap. I hung up, my mind replaying the lawsuit's opening line. Financial hardship. I opened my red folder and stapled a note to the inside. Check SUV lease. On November 18th, I took May's advice and went to Staples to print out the full text thread from Liam. The clerk, a kid with pink hair, slid the papers through the printer and frowned at the words in bold black, "You owe me this." He handed them to me carefully, like they might burn. I slipped them into my yellow folder labeled Texts and Calls. At home, I sat at the kitchen table and highlighted every lie. We'll lose our home by November. Then I glanced at the refinance date. June. They'd had 5 months of cushion and still came for me. That night, Rosa Delgado, my next-door neighbor and notary, stopped by with soup. She's been signing my papers for years. I told her what was happening. She shook her head and said, "You raised a son who knows better, Frank. But greed eats memory." I asked if she'd notarize my affidavit describing the night Liam tried my door handle. She came back with her stamp on November 21st and signed it on my kitchen counter while the wind howled outside. "You make copies of everything," she said. "People change stories. Paper doesn't." By November 24th, Evan emailed again. He'd dug through court filings and found Kayla's name attached to a credit card judgment from October 2023, $8,900 unpaid. She and Liam never told me that. May grinned when I handed her the printout. "Good, that's motive." "Feels like betrayal," I said quietly. "Those are synonyms in this business," she replied. She leaned forward, tapping her pen on the table. "No revenge yet. Not until we've got their timeline tighter than their excuses." I left her office and drove home under early snow. My hands didn't shake anymore. I had a plan, a lawful one. At home, I opened my green folder labeled PI Notes and wrote a new line. June 18th, refinance $62,000, NOV 7, SUV lease, Kayla's sister, NOV 11, door try, recorded, Deck 2, response filing, planned. The pattern was forming. They'd built a life on borrowed breath, and now they were choking on it. As I closed my notebook, the doorbell rang again. Amazon package for someone else. Wrong address. But my heart still jumped. I looked around my warm, quiet kitchen. The folders spread out like battle plans. For the first time since the lawsuit arrived, I didn't feel old. I felt ready. I whispered to the empty room. If they want a war of paperwork, I'll show them arithmetic. The oven clicked off, and the timer dinged once. A small, perfect beat. I opened a new folder and wrote its label carefully in ink. Proof. Next step, serve discovery, 1 page at a time. It was December 2nd, when May filed our official response to the lawsuit. She slid the stamped copy across her desk, the court seal pressed into the corner like a quiet victory. "We deny every allegation," she said, "and we demand strict proof." Her tone was dry, but I could hear pride hiding behind it. That same afternoon, I opened a fresh manila folder at home and wrote the word revenge on it. Not the angry kind, the organized kind. Our plan wasn't flashy, it was slow, deliberate and lawful. May told me, "We don't throw punches, Frank, we hold mirrors." Step 1, discovery requests. May drafted subpoenas for the mortgage bank, HOA and the title company. "We'll see exactly where their money went after June," she said. I signed each document like a man swearing an oath. Step 2, lock down your life. On December 3rd, I installed a new garage keypad and kept the code written only in my ledger. I labeled that page Security Update, 12 to 324. Even my sister Nora didn't know the number. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being precise. That night, I set my phone to record every voicemail. Liam called once, left a 2-second breath, then hung up. It was enough to make my chest tighten, but I didn't delete it. Evidence isn't always words. Sometimes it's silence. By December 5th, Evan, the PI, sent me a thin folder. Inside were photos of Kayla and Liam at a steakhouse called the Hollow Birch. Date stamped December 9th, 8:14 p.m. 2 wine glasses, 1 receipt, 1,149.27. I didn't even know you could spend that much on dinner in Cleveland. He'd stapled the receipt to a screenshot of Kayla's financial hardship letter, dated December 10th, the very next day. The irony hit harder than the bourbon I poured that night. I took the photos to May. She barely glanced at them before saying, "Perfect. This isn't cruelty, Frank. This is math with morals. We added it to our exhibit binder under contradictions. Exhibit 6B. I couldn't help smiling. Every night that week I practiced my calm. I'd sit at the kitchen table, open the yellow folder of texts and read them aloud to the empty room. "You owe me this." Mom would have helped. "Hope you're ready to lose everything." Then I'd look at the folders stacked by color, blue for title and insurance, red for taxes, yellow for texts and call logs, green for PI notes, and whisper, "Not today." May trained me how to answer in court. "Short, true sentences," she said. "No speeches. If you're angry, breathe. If you're cornered, look at the judge, not your son." We filed our motion for sanctions on December 8th. Not because we'd win it, but because it forced their side to produce real bank statements. "They'll have to choose," May said, "between lying to you or lying to the court." On December 10th, a letter arrived from their attorney, a man named Thomas Riley. It read like a scolding. "Our clients stand by their claims and refuse mediation unless Mr. Murphy shows remorse." Remorse. That word stuck like a splinter. I had raised my son with calloused hands and quiet pride. I'd taught him to wire home safely, to ground before you touch current. I never thought I'd need to remind him that money ungrounded burns the same way electricity does. That evening, Rosa came over again, bringing tamales. "You look steadier," she said. I nodded. I started thinking like an electrician again. "How so?" "Every short circuit starts with one loose connection." We ate quietly. When she left, I sealed the Riley letter into my green folder. I wasn't mad anymore. I was calculating. The next morning, May called. "The judge granted our discovery motion. They have 10 days to respond. 10 days. 10 days to watch them twist under the weight of their own paperwork." I went to the garage, turned off the light, and stood in the still air for a while. My fingers brushed the new keypad. It beeped softly obedient. I said no. I whispered to the dark, and no is still the answer. In the distance, snow fell again. The neighborhood slept. But for the first time since the lawsuit began, I slept too, folders stacked neatly on the kitchen counter, truth tucked in color-coded peace. Next step, mediation, and I already knew they'd come wearing masks. Mediation day arrived on December 13th, and Cleveland was covered in thin sheets of ice, the kind that looks harmless until you step on it. I remember thinking, perfect metaphor. The conference room smelled of burned coffee and polished wood. A small clock ticked on the wall. Liam sat across from me in a navy suit he couldn't quite fill, his foot tapping against the carpet. Kayla sat beside him, wearing sorrow like perfume. Their lawyer, Riley, spread his papers like playing cards. May leaned toward me and whispered, "No talking, unless I nod." The mediator, a grey-haired man with kind eyes, began, "Let's start with what each party wants." Riley spoke first. "My clients are not vindictive," he said. "They simply need relief from a promise that was understood." "Understood by whom?" I muttered. May's elbow pressed lightly into my arm, a warning. Liam's voice cracked the silence. "Dad, you said you'd help when things got bad." "We're drowning." May leaned forward, her tone even. "Can we define help?" Mr. Murphy has provided significant support before. Down payment of $15,000 in 2018. Additional transfers totaling $2,800 last year. Is there a document where he guaranteed ongoing payments? Riley shuffled papers. Nothing. Kayla's eyes glistened. He's twisting it. We counted on him. He owes us. That word again, owes. I opened the blue folder and slid out a photocopy of my wife's handwritten note. Keep the house. Frank. I set it in the center of the table. This, I said softly, is the only promise I ever made. The room fell still. Even the clock stopped meaning anything. Riley broke the silence first, voice tightening. This isn't relevant. It's completely relevant, May cut in. This note defines intent. No financial obligation, no contract. Just a widow's wish. The mediator cleared his throat. Perhaps there's a middle ground. There is, May said. It's called dismissal. Liam's jaw clenched. You'll regret this, Dad. I looked at him, and for the first time didn't see my son. I saw a man who turned inheritance into an expectation. I already regret raising a man who confuses love with loans. Kayla gasped, theatrically. Riley gathered his files. We're done here. Agreed, May replied. Outside, the cold wind hit like honesty. Snowflakes spun around the courthouse steps as May zipped her coat. You held your ground. That matters. I nodded, though my hands still trembled. What now? Now we wait. Court's January 6th. They'll either fold or double down. When I got home, the porch light flickered. My doorbell camera showed Liam pacing the sidewalk that evening, not coming up the steps, just standing there, head down, then walking away. I saved the clip and sent it to May. Her reply came 2 minutes later. Keep it. Pattern of harassment. Later that night, Rosa texted, check your porch, packages. I opened the door to find 2 small boxes addressed to me, but shipped from stores in Kayla's name. Odd prank or mistake. I recorded myself opening them. Inside, nothing but tissue paper. Empty boxes, I laughed once, bitter and quiet. Even their gestures had no substance. Evan, the PI, called the next morning. You might want to hear this. He'd obtained a voicemail recording through public routing, Kayla on speakerphone saying, just cry if you have to, the mediator will fold him. The timestamp? The night before mediation. When I played it, my blood went cold, then steady. I sent the audio straight to May. She answered with one word, perfect. By December 18th, May filed a motion to include the recording as supplemental evidence. Riley tried to suppress it. The judge allowed it. That was the moment their case started to leak air like a punctured tire. Christmas crept closer, and Nora insisted on hosting dinner on December 24th. We're still family, she said. I almost said no, but May wanted one more face-to-face. People reveal themselves at tables, she told me. Bring your folders. So I packed my blue one, deed note, texts, and tucked my phone in my coat pocket with the recorder app open. I didn't know it yet. But that dinner would be the quiet explosion before the courtroom storm. As I turned off the kitchen lights, the oven timer dinged again, a sound I'd started to take as a sign. The truth doesn't rush, I whispered to myself. It arrives right on time, and this time it was pulling up right to my sister's front door, December 24th, Christmas Eve. Cleveland streets shimmered with ice and porch lights. I carried my folders under one arm and a bottle of wine under the other, more for camouflage than celebration. Nora's house smelled of pine and roast beef. Her husband carved at the counter, humming carols. On the surface, everything was peace. Underneath, it was stage lighting. Liam and Kayla were already there, standing near the tree, hands linked like defendants posing for mercy. I caught a flicker of triumph in Kayla's eyes, the kind that says, we're winning something tonight. Nora greeted me softly. Frank, no fighting tonight, please. I nodded. No fighting. Just facts. We sat. Plates clinked. Small talk wobbled. The room's heat made my collar feel too tight. When Kayla asked, so Dad, did you bring the paperwork? I almost laughed. What paperwork? I asked. The transfer forms, she said. Liam said you were ready to settle. My son stared down at his potatoes. He hadn't said that, but he hadn't not said it either. His silence was consent. I put down my fork, reached into my coat pocket, and tapped my phone screen once. It beeped quietly, recording started. Ohio's one-party consent law. May had drilled it into me like gospel. Settle, I said. That's an interesting word for extortion. Kayla froze. Liam's head shot up. Dad, don't start this now. I'm not starting anything, I said calmly. You already did that in November, when you had me served. You brought that on yourself, he snapped. We were desperate. Desperate people don't lease new SUVs and spend $149 at the Hollow Birch the night before sending hardship letters. Kayla's mouth fell open. You were spying on us? Public record, Kayla. It's amazing what sunlight shows. The table went silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Nora's husband coughed awkwardly. I didn't look away. Kayla turned red. You're cruel. No, I said, voice low. Cruel is suing your widowed father for $1 million because he wouldn't pay for your mistakes. Her next words betrayed her. That lease is in my sister's name. The room froze. Even the tree lights seemed to dim. Liam hissed, Kayla. But it was too late. I tapped the screen again. The recording stopped. Thank you, I said quietly. That clears up a few things. Liam shoved back his chair. Delete it. I stood slowly. Not a chance. He took a step toward me, eyes wet with anger, then looked around at everyone watching. His aunt, her husband, the kids peeking from the hallway. He stopped, shaking his head. You've lost it, old man. I slid my phone into my coat pocket. Maybe, but I keep records when I lose things. Nora spoke gently. Liam, maybe it's time to go. Kayla muttered something about lawyers hearing about this. I smiled. They will. January 6th. As I left, the snow outside felt cleaner than the air inside. I stood by my truck for a long moment, watching my breath rise in pale clouds. In the window's reflection, I saw myself, a man who'd been accused, insulted, nearly robbed, and still standing. On the drive home, I played the audio once, just to be sure. Her voice was crisp as frost. That lease is in my sister's name. One perfect confession, wrapped in tinsel and timing. I pulled into my driveway, porch light glowing. The neighborhood was quiet, except for the hum of a distant plow. I stepped inside, locked the door, and set the phone beside my blue folder marked proof. For the first time, I felt something like calm. Revenge wasn't fire, it was freezing water, patient and clear. I poured myself one glass of bourbon, watched the snow drift past the window, and whispered, Merry Christmas, Maggie. The truth came home. In a few days, I'd walk into that courtroom with calm hands and color-coded justice, because when January came, I planned to wear my best suit and my calmest heartbeat. January 6th, Monday morning. The kind of cold that bites your knuckles before you even reach the courthouse steps. I remember the way the wind slapped through my coat, the courthouse dome shining against the gray Cleveland sky, and thinking, this is what final looks like. Courtroom 3C smelled like polish and paper. Fluorescent lights hummed faintly above us. Kayla and Liam sat at the plaintiff's table, whispering furiously to their lawyer, Thomas Riley. I caught Kayla glancing at the gallery seats, empty except for a reporter from the Cleveland Ledger and my sister Nora, hands folded tight. May set her files in front of me with practiced grace. Remember, she said softly, short, true sentences. Don't defend yourself, state facts. You've already won half the war by showing up calm. The bailiff called Murphy versus Murphy. The judge, a woman named Hannah Patricia Granger, adjusted her glasses and glanced between us. Counsel, I've read the filings. Let's proceed. Riley stood first, giving the performance of his life. Your Honor, this is not about greed, he began, his voice oily and rehearsed. It's about family obligation. My clients have been financially devastated, left without recourse after their father reneged on his promise to assist. May didn't even flinch. Riley waved toward me. This man, he said, has the means. Over $300,000 in certificates of deposit. He could have resolved this with compassion. The judge's eyebrow lifted. Counsel, compassion is not a cause of action. Do you have written proof of a promise? Riley hesitated. Verbal agreements, Your Honor, supported by consistent financial aid over years. Consistent, the judge repeated. Or generous. He cleared his throat. A pattern suggests expectation. May rose calm as snow. If I may, Your Honor. She placed her blue binder on the lectern, opened it to the first exhibit. Defense Exhibit A, a handwritten note from the late Margaret Murphy, dated August 2018. It reads, "Keep the house. Frank." This defines the defendant's financial boundaries. She moved smoothly through the folders. Exhibit B, a $15,000 cashier's check, dated October 3rd, 2018. Clearly marked gift, home down payment. Exhibit C, a $2,800 transfer request from November 2023, fulfilled and cashed. Exhibit D, bank statements confirming Mr. Murphy's continued financial responsibility for his own property, taxes, insurance, maintenance. She paused. There is no pattern of neglect here. There is a pattern of parental generosity being weaponized. The courtroom was silent, except for the soft buzz of the lights. Riley tried to recover. Your Honor, hardship forced their hand. They are months behind on their mortgage. May tilted her head. Let's examine that hardship. She clicked her remote, and on the screen appeared a timeline, each date drawn like railroad ties. Plaintiffs refinanced their mortgage June 18, 2024, cashing out $62,000. They fell delinquent by August. Exhibit E shows an HOA lien posted November 1st, and Exhibit F, she tapped her folder, is a photo from the Hollow Birch Steakhouse on December 9th, totaling $1,149.27, the night before they sent Mr. Murphy a hardship letter. A ripple went through the gallery. The reporter's pen scratched furiously. Riley sputtered. Irrelevant context, May said firmly. And Exhibit G, she clicked again. The waveform of Kayla's Christmas Eve voice filled the speakers. That lease is in my sister's name. The courtroom went still. The sound was small, but the weight was enormous. Kayla's eyes widened. That's illegal. You can't record me. May didn't blink. Ohio is a one-party consent state, Your Honor. Mr. Murphy lawfully recorded his own conversation. The judge nodded. Overruled. Riley sank a little. May finished gently. In summary, Your Honor, my client was sued for $1 million because he refused to fund deception. That's not neglect. That's integrity. The judge leaned back. Mr. Murphy, you may speak briefly. I stood. My voice didn't shake, just carried. Your Honor, I worked 40 years with my hands. Every dollar I earned was clean. I gave my son everything he ever asked for, until he asked for something that wasn't his. I said no because this house is my wife's last wish. It's not greed, it's grief with good accounting. A long silence followed. Riley opened his mouth, then closed it again. Judge Granger adjusted her glasses. I've heard enough. The plaintiff's claim for intentional interference and emotional neglect is denied for lack of evidence. The complaint is dismissed with prejudice. The gavel came down soft, but it sounded like thunder. Kayla's face flushed crimson. Liam's shoulders collapsed forward. He didn't look at me. Not once. May gathered our files quietly. We'll file for attorney's fees within the week. As we walked out, the reporter from the Ledger stopped me. Mr. Murphy, any comment? I paused at the courthouse door, snow swirling around us. Yes, I said. You can't sue someone for saying no. Outside, the air hit my lungs like clean truth. Nora hugged me on the steps. You did it, she whispered. Not yet, I said. Justice is half paperwork, half patience. We walked to the parking lot together. Behind us, through the glass doors, I caught one last glimpse of Liam, standing there in that too-big suit, eyes wet, mouth tight. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But compassion without accountability is just another kind of theft. That night, back home, I set the court order beside my wife's note. Both fit neatly in the blue folder marked Legacy. I poured a small drink and watched the snow drift past the window. The case was over, but something heavier had ended too. The illusion that blood always means bond. They'd sued for a fortune and found a ledger instead, and the line I drew, the one I thought might break me, had turned out to be the line that saved me. Next step, consequences. Because every gavel echo leaves a shadow. The morning after the verdict, Cleveland felt different. lighter somehow. I brewed coffee, opened my kitchen blinds, and let sunlight spill across the table where the folders still sat, red, yellow, blue, green, all my battle colors. For the first time in months, I didn't need to add a new page. The ledger was complete, but justice isn't quiet, it ripples. By January 8th, 2 days after the dismissal, May called me. Riley's office just withdrew from representation. Your son and daughter-in-law are on their own now. Her tone was professional, but I could hear a trace of satisfaction. The judge also granted us a fee hearing for Friday. We'll recover your legal costs. I thanked her and hung up, sitting in the silence. My house, which had felt like a bunker for months, suddenly sounded like a home again. The hum of the fridge, the faint tick of the wall clock. Peace has a sound when you've missed it long enough. Later that day, I drove to the post office to send Nora a copy of the judgment. The clerk, a man my age, scanned the envelope and said, "Murphy, right? Read about your case in the ledger." "Hell of a thing," I smiled politely. "Just a family matter sorted out." But word traveled faster than paper. By January 9th, Kayla's social media accounts were scrubbed clean. No more photos of champagne dinners or leased SUVs. Liam's co-workers at the construction firm started whispering. Evan had connections there, and news of the failed lawsuit leaked through the grapevine. Pride can survive many blows, but public embarrassment is fatal to it. That evening, I received a text from Liam. Just one word: why? I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering. Then I typed back, "Because I told you no, and you refused to hear it." I didn't send anything else. The next morning, May called again. The judge ruled. "You're awarded $8,400 in attorney's fees and costs, payable within 30 days. I laughed quietly, half disbelief, half relief. "They'll never pay it. Then it'll sit on record," she said. A lesson written in ink. On January 11th, Evan dropped by my house with 2 folders. "Final reports," he said. "Kayla's SUV payments are 3 months behind. Joey's filed for foreclosure on their condo. They've got a lien bigger than their kitchen table." He set the papers down, looked me square in the eye. "You played this clean, Frank. You kept your name." I nodded. "That's all I ever wanted. That night." I boxed up every piece of evidence, copies of the texts, receipts, the steakhouse photo, the refinance report, and sealed them in a plastic tub labeled "Case Closed, Jan 2025. I slid it under the bed where my wife's cookbook box used to be. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Both were keepsakes of promises kept. On January 13th, I saw Kayla at the grocery store. She avoided eye contact, clutching a basket with off-brand cereal and baby wipes. For a second, I almost said something. Maybe an apology neither of us deserved, but I didn't. She'd made her choices. So had I. When I got home, I poured a drink and wrote a line in my notebook. "Justice doesn't shout. It signs receipts." 3 days later, the court's payment notice came by certified mail, proof that the system had worked, at least this once. I placed it beside my wife's note on the table. "Keep the house." Frank, I thought about how she'd smile if she could see it. The man she left behind, beaten up by grief but still standing, house intact, dignity unbent. For the first time in months, I turned off the porch light before bed. The neighborhood was quiet. No pacing shadows. No letters taped to my door, just snow settling on the mailbox, pure and indifferent. When I lay down, I realized something simple. Revenge isn't always about winning. It's about remembering who you were before someone tried to rewrite you. And as I drifted off, I whispered into the dark. They took my peace for a season. They took my name back forever. Next step, making sure the peace I'd earned stayed that way. Because even justice needs maintenance, just like a good house. By the 3rd week of January, the city thawed just enough for the gutters to run, and I finally heard something I hadn't in months: quiet, ordinary peace. I sat by the window with my ledger, flipping through old pages. Every note, every receipt, every date had carried me here, but justice isn't a moment. It's upkeep. May called on January 20th, her voice light for the first time since this all began. "Judge Granger signed the order," she said. "Case dismissed. Fees confirmed. We're officially closed." "Closed," I repeated, testing the word like a hinge that finally worked again. I suggest one more thing, she added. Update your estate plan. Protect the house for good. So that Friday, I walked 2 blocks to Rosa Delgado's kitchen, my neighbor, my notary, my quiet guardian through all of this. Her home smelled like strong coffee and cinnamon. She wiped her hands on a towel and said, "Ready to sign?" I nodded. May's new draft gives the house to a literacy non-profit if Liam remains estranged. No loopholes, no arguments, Rosa smiled. That's clean. She stamped each page with a firm final thunk. Now it's law. Back home, I nailed a small wooden plaque inside the front closet. House paid in full. 2024. It wasn't for anyone else to see. Just me and maybe Maggie somewhere above. That night, I sorted my keys. Garage, front door, gate, mailbox. I mailed a spare set to Nora, along with a letter. If anything happens, don't let them sell this house. It's not for profit, it's for peace. She called me crying the next morning. You always did keep promises too literally, I laughed. That's how they hold. Later that week, I walked through each room of the house like a tour guide of survival. The living room lamp I'd repaired after the stroke of loneliness in 2022 still glowed steady. The kitchen table bore faint grooves from years of note-taking. The blue folder sat on top, sealed and labeled Legacy. At sunset, I took my late wife's cookbook out again, the one with her handwriting, "Keep the house, Frank." I placed the court order inside it, between the pages for chicken soup and pot roast. That was her kind of poetry. Warm food, solid walls, quiet closure. Outside, kids played in the snowbank by the curb. The world had kept moving even while mine froze for months. That evening, I met Evan for coffee. He grinned across the booth. "So, old man, what's next? Victory parade?" "Just quiet dinners," I said. "And locked doors," he nodded. "You know, you did this the right way. No mud, no tricks. You let truth do the talking. Truth's the only thing that doesn't depreciate," I said. As I walked home, streetlights reflected on the melting snow like small halos. I realized justice hadn't come in a grand finale. It came in increments. Court papers, notarized stamps, a son's silence replaced by my own stillness. At the porch, I paused, listening to the furnace hum inside. Every honest man knows that sound. It's stability, I whispered to the empty night. You didn't lose me. Liam, you just priced me out. Then I locked the door, double turn, and set my phone to do not disturb. Peace, after all, is a practice. And for the first time in years, I slept without checking the porch camera, without dreaming of courtrooms or text threads. Just the steady sound of a house kept, a boundary respected, and a life reclaimed, because when money stops moving, character starts showing, and mine, finally, was paid in full. Next step, rebuilding my ordinary days, brick by brick, so silence would sound like a reward, not a punishment. By the time February rolled in, the ice on my gutters had melted into slow, steady drips, the kind of rhythm you don't notice unless you've lived through chaos. The lawsuit was behind me, but the echo still lived in my house, faint like footsteps in a memory. Kayla had gone quiet online. The lavish posts, the quotes about family betrayal, gone overnight. People always disappear twice, once in real life, then again in reputation. Liam, though, lingered on the edges. Word from Evan was that he'd taken a night shift at the logistics yard, keeping his head down. He was earning again, but dignity paced slower than any check. I didn't hate him. I just didn't recognize him anymore. One Sunday, I was at the hardware store on Lorraine Avenue, picking up light bulbs, when I spotted a man teaching his little boy how to choose the right gauge of wire. The boy couldn't have been older than 7. His father bent down, patient, explaining the difference between copper and aluminum, like it was sacred knowledge. I had to turn away before the lump in my throat gave me away. That used to be me and Liam, back before money rewrote our family language. That evening I cooked dinner for one, salmon, steamed vegetables, and a small glass of bourbon. I didn't feel lonely, just uncluttered. On February 14th I got a letter from Nora, a real one, not an email. Inside was a photo of her backyard dusted in snow, and a note, "You kept the house, Frankie." Maggie would have been proud. I read it twice, then pinned it to the fridge beside the court order. 2 victories side by side when the check for attorney's fees cleared that week. I drove to the Cleveland Credit Union and moved $18,400 straight into a small trust I labeled Home Repairs 2025. Not revenge money. Maintenance money, because peace, like a roof, leaks if you ignore it too long. On February 20th, I spent the afternoon with Rosa. We boxed up Maggie's cookbooks, the whole shelf this time. I kept just one, the stained one with her note. The rest we donated to the library sale downtown. Rosa said, "Feels like letting go." "It's not letting go," I said quietly. "It's filing away." We shared coffee afterward. I told her about the plan to start volunteering again, rewiring the old parish hall lights for free. She smiled. "That's how you heal, huh? Circuits and silence." Something like that. Back home, I sat at the window with the evening news humming low. The snow outside had started to melt, puddling near the mailbox. Life was moving on, as it always does, without ceremony. I took a walk through the house before bed, each room holding its breath like a loyal friend. The clock ticked. The heat kicked on. Even the hum of the fridge sounded like forgiveness. At the door, I paused to switch off the porch light. The keypad glowed soft green, the same one I'd changed the code on months ago. My fortress, my boundary, my proof that no can be sacred. I locked it, double-checked and whispered, "We're done now." Maggie, in the quiet that followed, I realized something. Justice had fixed my name, but peace had fixed my soul. The house stayed. The noise left, and somewhere out there, maybe Liam finally learned the lesson I'd been trying to teach him his whole life. Love isn't alone. Tomorrow, I'd start on the parish lights. It was time to give something good back to the world. Next step, a letter I never expected to get, one that would remind me that some debts aren't measured in money, but in forgiveness. It was the first warm day of March when the letter arrived. The snow was gone, the air smelled faintly of wet earth, and the postman handed me a plain white envelope with handwriting I'd have known anywhere. Liam. For a long time, I didn't open it. I set it on the counter, made coffee, stared out the window. Birds were back on the power lines, the neighborhood thawing into life again. Funny how the world keeps moving even when families don't. When I finally slit the envelope open, the words were short, maybe 40. Total. "Dad, I know you hate me. Things got bad. We're losing the condo. I just need a little help to get back on my feet. Please." No apology. No ownership. Just please. I stood there for a long while, the sound of the refrigerator filling the silence. Then I pulled out my ledger, yes, the same one, and turned to a fresh page. Across the top I wrote March 8, 2025, response. I didn't grab a checkbook. I grabbed a pen. I wrote slowly, deliberately, the way I used to wire circuits, making sure every connection had a purpose. Liam, I don't hate you. I hate what greed made of you. You asked for money when you needed accountability. You sued me when you could have sat down for dinner. And now, when the bills have come due, you ask again. Bring me a plan, not a plea. Show me work, not words. Until then, the only thing I can offer is the truth. You didn't lose your father. You priced him out. I folded the page and slipped it into an envelope. But before sealing it, I added one last thing. A photocopy of the court's dismissal order and a recipe card in my wife's handwriting. Chicken soup. Good for starting over. No lecture, just warmth, written in her ink instead of mine. I mailed it that afternoon. The woman at the post office smiled and said, "Sending good news." "Depends who reads it," I replied. That night I sat on the porch with a cup of tea instead of bourbon. The street was quiet, the sky pink with the last of winter's chill. Across the yard, the fence I'd built in January stood clean and strong. Boundaries, I thought. The simplest kind of architecture. I didn't expect a reply from Liam, and one never came. But a week later, Nora called to say she'd seen him working odd jobs at the port. "Maybe it's a start," she said. "Maybe," I answered. Starting over is the one skill we Murphys all share. We hung up, and I sat there for a long time, listening to the distant train whistle echo across the flats. It sounded like closure, Before going inside, I glanced once more at the keypad beside the door. The numbers glowed soft green in the dusk, steady, faithful, unchanged. I pressed in the code, stepped through, and shut the world out behind me. I placed my wife's cookbook back on the shelf, and for the first time since all this began, closed it without reading the note. I didn't need to. The words were already part of me. Keep the house, Frank. The house was still here. I was still here, and maybe somewhere out there, my son was learning that no can be the kindest word a man ever says. I turned off the light. The furnace hummed, and I whispered to the quiet, "You didn't lose me. Liam, you gave me away." And in that stillness, I realized that was the real revenge. Not the court win, not the fee check, not even the peace. It was the freedom to forgive without forgetting. The house stayed. The man did too, and that finally was justice paid in full.